Alright, brick to the head brigade. The Motor City Machine Guns are a tag team which is synonymous with TNA, now Impact Wrestling. They are one of the first things you think about when you think of this company. Along with Styles, Daniels and Samoa Joe, they defined what TNA stood for. The team became insanely popular, despite wrestling at a time when smaller wrestlers were only just starting to become accepted in the bigger companies. The team began in 2007, but what if I told you that they didn't win the tag belts for 3 years? You'd probably smack me with a brick. Okay, well what if I told you that before the Guns won the tag titles, we were treated to title reigns from such incredible teams as Team Pac-Man, Kaz and Super Eric, and Matt Morgan as a sole champion? You would probably piss on a brick and lob it through my window. Okay, let's go one step further then, and I'm telling you this and you need to hear it. The Motor City Machine Guns only won the TNA tag team titles once. That piss has turned to flames now. How can any of that be possible? Well, shut up or I'll smack you one. Here's what went wrong with the Motor City Machine Guns in TNA. The Motor City Machine Guns consisted of Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Both guys had been wrestling for TNA before their team existed in TNA with mixed success. Sabin had done well in the X Division and was a multi-time champion, but Alex Shelley had arrived a bit later. Shelley had been paired up with Kevin Nash, and it turned out he had a likeable character, and he was actually very charismatic. When that ended, Nash put Shelley and Sabin together as a team. Straight away, they just seemed to fit perfectly. They were similar builds, similar ages, and you could just buy that these two guys were good friends behind the scenes. Their first feud was against Bob Backlund and Jerry Lynn because the Guns were being disrespectful young punks. Once upon a time, Kevin Nash beat Bob Backlund in 9 seconds, so Shelley believed he could also do this. He couldn't. They met on pay-per-view, and even with Chris Sabin's help, he still lost, so not a good start. They continued to feud with Jerry Lynn and Bob Backlund under the tutelage of fellow Detroit native Kevin Nash. They did win a follow-up pay-per-view match, but only due to Kevin Nash's interference. The in-ring stuff wasn't great, but their arrogant personalities were clicking. Despite that though, the Machine Guns rarely made it onto the TV show, and when they did, it was just to do the JOB to more established tag teams. TNA only had one TV show at that time, which was an hour long, and there just wasn't room for the unestablished Machine Guns on the show. It was even rumoured at this point that the Guns were about to leave TNA. It was almost over before it barely began. Fortunately, it didn't end though. Instead, they finally got their first proper feud against Team 3D as the Dudleys went to war with the X Division. The Guns got to show a lot of personality here and make jokes about Bubba Ray being too fat to enjoy the X Division. This led to their first good match as a tag team at Genesis 2007. It was clear by now how popular the Guns had become with the fans. Shockingly, the Guns won this match, but the feud continued. Eventually, the Guns ended up winning this feud, which lasted 3 months. The Dudleys lost the final match and were forced to go on a diet. The Guns spent almost the entirety of 2008 doing the JOB, but their fan support remained excellent thanks to their excellent matches and personality. You'd think after winning a feud with the Dudleys, it would be time to get them in the title picture, but no. And just on a side note, because there didn't really seem to be a suitable place to put this comment, but I have to say that the Motor City Machine Guns had several excellent entrance songs. I'm a firm believer that a good entrance song could really help with a wrestler's popularity. Anyway, the Guns were essentially treated as X Division wrestlers and not recognised as a proper tag fixture by TNA management. As the end of 2008 drew nearer, the Guns started to show signs of a heel turn as they were disrespectful to their opponents and they were bad losers. This in part played into the beginning of the main event Mafia storyline as the Icon Sting was tired of young disrespectful punks in TNA. Shelley and Sabin joined the TNA Frontline faction who were supposed to be the young TNA guys who were fighting the Mafia. They never actually really wanted to be there, they were just kind of forced into it. They were sarcastic and always complaining about having to hang around with the TNA Frontline. They did not like these guys. Mick Foley took the TNA Frontline under his large wings, but he got tired of the Guns moaning, specifically Alex Shelley, and it felt like we were about to get a match between the two, but we didn't. Well, we'll come back to that point.
Are you playing with a booger? Are you? No, have we got a problem here? Is the shape and size of my more important to you than the loss you suffered against beer money?
Samoa Joe and AJ Styles were tired of the Guns not taking anything seriously, so they beat them up in a match. The Frontline were a joke, they were fighting each other instead of the Mafia. The following week, Alex Shelley lost another match, and as a result of the loss, he was forced to wear a turkey suit, which is a TNA tradition for some reason. Foley was delighted to force his mortal enemy to dress up as a turkey. Yeah, the Guns were just kind of spinning their wheels in TNA. They just kind of drifted away from the frontline storyline. I don't think anybody noticed that they were gone. The Guns got bored because they weren't considered to be a part of the tag division, so they both entered a tournament for the X Division title. Interestingly, the tournament ended with Sabin versus Shelley for the vacant belt at the Genesis pay-per-view. They have a 17-minute smash fest where they finally get to show what they can do. I highly recommend this match, and Shelley wins it when he outsmarts his own partner and cheats. He actually had a decent X Division title reign too, but we're here to talk about the Motor City Machine Guns. After Shelley lost his belt, the Guns randomly turned up on Impact wearing tag belts. But don't get too excited, of course it's not the TNA tag belts, it's the IWGP Junior tag belts, which they won over there. I guess this helped them feel like a more serious team? Now remember that feud with Mick Foley? Yeah, TNA did too, only 4 months after it ended. Well, we randomly got a handicap first blood match, which the Motor City Machine Guns beat Foley in, but only due to interference. Apparently, Foley was jealous that his kid's favourite wrestler was Alex Shelley. The Guns dropped the IWGP tag belts to the Dudleys away from TNA, and with that, they pretty much disappeared from screens again. They made it back to screens in the middle of 2009, but don't get too excited. They appeared in the crowd with signs proclaiming that their lack of push was a conspiracy. They also went on to cut a promo on the following show complaining about their lack of TV time. This isn't going well.
Are you kidding me?
It's real. Is it real?
It's real.
Some sort of futuristic,
Some
magical
sort of
eye?
a TV camera. That's
Exactly,
right,
yeah.
man, dude.
I mean, you'd think we'd have forgotten since we haven't been on TV in so long.
Your jobs are in jeopardy.
Our jobs are in jeopardy. No kidding. We haven't been on TV in a month.
Hey, keep your mouth shut, Alex. You guys haven't been on TV because you haven't been doing anything to get noticed.
They became commentators. Whilst this was hilarious, it was not the best way to utilise the team. Although, the jokes about them pleasuring themselves during the Beautiful People's entrance was top tier.
That's your opinion, David Penzer. I'm really glad that we brought these tissues out because I usually need one after their entrance. Folks, if you call Don West right now, Joe Montana will autograph that poster and an apple core, and you can hang it on the ceiling above your bed. That's right. What better place for a poster of the beautiful people? The ceiling above your bed? I'm sorry, or on the inside of your... I'm staring at her ass. Yeah.
They did eventually return to the ring, but it was still going badly. During a match with the Dudleys, Bubba Ray dropped Sabin on his head, which gave him a concussion. Kevin Nash blew up at the Dudleys backstage for being too rough with the Guns and for not protecting them. Nash seemed to have a legit friendship with these guys. Things had gotten so bad for the Motor City Machine Guns that they were being bumped onto the pre-show of pay-per-views. What the f***? At the end of 2009, the Guns did finally have 2 matches for the proper TNA tag belts, but they lost both times. And this was most likely really bad news because the landscape in TNA was about to change, and the Guns had nothing on their resumes to back them up. Enter Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan, and don't expect their X Division credentials to be their saving grace. So this is normally the part of the video where it goes completely downhill, and I want to smack the leader of the Grey Crew. Hold your hawks though, that isn't necessarily the case this time. Well, first off, it barely feels like they were in TNA during the Monday Night Wars because they had no mic time and nothing but random 2-minute matches. We did get a couple of bangers between the Young Bucks and the Machine Guns, which was a dream match to some people, but none of it meant anything because it wasn't for the belts. After failing time and time again to win the tag titles and most likely still being seen as X Division wrestlers, the unthinkable finally happened in July 2010 on the Victory Road pay-per-view. No, not that one. The Motor City Machine Guns beat Beer Money to finally capture the TNA tag titles. And surprisingly, this is going to be a good tag team title reign for the Guns. And it seemed that management rated that match with Beer Money so highly that they thought they would treat them to a best of 5 series between the two teams for the tag gold. Surprisingly, this best of 5 series all took place on Impact, and this best of 5 is legendary. You can't help but feel if this would have happened just a few months earlier during the failed Monday Night Wars, it may have helped a bit. The first match is a ladder match. It's great. Beer Money win through shenanigans. The second match is a street fight. And for the second match in a row, the Guns lose when they're hit with a beer bottle. The third match is in a cage, and the Guns finally get a win. The fourth is an Ultimate X, which is an incredible match on its own. It's insane that all of this was on free TV. And of course, the Guns win, levelling this series. So how do you settle this feud then? A best 2 out of 3 falls match, of course. It's just straight up pinfalls here because they basically burnt through every type of stip that existed. This match is just incredible, it's the best of the series, and on that you can trust the Hawk. The Guns win to retain. Their other major tag title feud during this reign was with the Young Bucks, and we were treated to 3 excellent pay-per-view showings with the Guns successfully defending their belts each time. And of course, who remembers the empty arena match between the two teams? That was a lot of fun as well. They also beat Team 3D in what was supposed to be their final match as a team. Of course, they changed their minds. This was an excellent tag title reign, and it really shows why the Guns are regarded as one of the best TNA tag teams, despite only holding the TNA tag title once. The Guns eventually lost the tag belts to Beer Money, ending their reign at 182 days after some miscommunication. It seemed like the Guns were on the verge of breaking up, but speaking of breaking, before that could happen, Shelley broke his collarbone in January 2011. This kept him off TV for over 3 months. During this time, Chris Sabin was dropped to random X Division matches, but mostly he didn't even make it onto the TV show. So you can imagine everyone's relief when Alex Shelley made a surprise return, saving Chris Sabin from a beatdown. But I've got some bad news for you. In one of the biggest moments of unfortunate timing I've probably ever heard in wrestling, Sabin blew out his knee before Shelley could even come down to save him. And this knee injury was legit and it kept him out for an entire year. I'm not making this up. It feels so unlikely, but yes, this happened. On the day one returned from injury, the other got injured. So Bischoff and Hogan cannot be blamed for the downfall of the machine guns. What they can be blamed for, however, though, is the following. Whilst Chris Sabin was gone, Alex Shelley was barely booked, and then he just completely disappeared from TV for 4 entire months. He wasn't injured. It's like, yeah, sorry guys, we don't see any value in you as separate people. It's tag teaming or nothing. The Guns returned to TNA TV in April 2012, and everyone was super happy to see them. After this huge comeback story from injury, there's so much they could do with this storyline. The comeback is on. They're gonna win the tag titles. What? They have 1 tag title shot of Lockdown, which they lose, and then Alex Shelley rejected a new TNA contract and left TNA in May 2012. 1 month. We waited all that time, and they finally got the Guns back together for 1 month. I can't really blame Alex Shelley. He wasn't exactly treated well, and he must have felt that the writing was on the wall when they didn't book him for 4 months. There were rumours that he'd sign with the WWE, but that didn't materialise. Instead, he did Ring of Honor in Japan whilst Chris Sabin stayed with TNA. Sabin had a decent singles run as a heel, and even won the world title in 2013, although fans didn't enjoy that at the time. The Guns reformed in ROH in 2016 and stayed there for a couple of years. Alex Shelley retired from wrestling in 2018 to prepare for his career after wrestling, but then ended up returning a year later to wrestling. Shelley also had a match on NXT telly in 2020 in a tag tournament with Kushida, surprisingly not Sabin as his partner. Kushida had been Shelley's partner whenever Sabin wasn't available. They were the time splitters. TNA fans did finally get closure when the Motor City Machine Guns reformed in Now Impact Wrestling in 2020, and they won the tag belts twice. Shelley's even the world champion right now if you didn't know that. It's a shame their tag team success couldn't have come a bit sooner when the company was on a high. 2011 was far too late for the Guns to win the tag belts. Fans have been begging for them to be featured more for years, for 4 years in fact. Couple of interesting things I picked up from making this video that I wasn't really aware of before. Alex Shelley handled most of the promo time for the Guns, possibly because he was stronger on the mic than Chris Sabin. But Chris Sabin wrestled far more matches for TNA. He wrestled 643 including house shows, whereas Shelley only wrestled 449. That would be down to the fact that Sabin arrived in TNA earlier and stayed in TNA after Shelley had left. They often had the best match on the pay-per-view. They weren't vanilla. They were seen as cool guys to teenagers. They had lots of merchandise. These guys were great. There's a reason their run is looked back on so fondly. The blame for this one has to lie on Vince Russo, Jim Cornette and Matt Conway, who I believe were all bookers around this time. For some reason, they didn't view the Guns as a team to lead the tag team division, even though they were great. By the time the Guns finally got where they needed to be, the injuries kicked in. Bischoff and Hogan just didn't see any value in them as singles from the look of it, but as a team, they weren't treated badly by that regime. And if you don't agree with that, I'll make you dream.